Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for attending. This is the quarterly meeting of the Washoe County School District Audit Committee. I guess we have to start with roll call of the committee members present.
Ben Bartow.
Present.
Wesley Chugilern.
Here.
Ron Ellis.
Here.
Vida Ozude.
Here.
Todd Shipley.
Here.
Jennifer Thomas. Deborah Yates. She's not here.
Shut that off. Okay. So the first item up is for public comment, and I believe we have Dr. Diane Nicolette who would like to make some comments, so the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm a friendly face, just know that right off the top. And I'm here with great appreciation representing all 7 school board members. Just a little quick note that I like to share is my husband Mark of 50 years he's retired now, but he's a CPA auditor kind of guy. And when I was up at TMCC and I would hear about the auditor coming, my husband was always the one that said, now remember, they're your friend. They're not your foe. And I took that to heart because it's absolutely true. If you keep an open mind and embrace the fact that you're experts, they're trying to help you, they're trying to improve your practice and sometimes keep you out of jail, then that is a really good thing. And so first off, the trustees want to thank you for all that you do because this is hard work. And I know that through my husband, so I can attest to that. You also are really adept at finding that needle in the haystack. You're absolutely marvelous at it, and I appreciate that. All 7 of us do. I want to read something that your fearless leader, yes, shared, because this is how he wants us to know how much you do. The audit committee members are instrumental in evaluating the results of the district's annual external financial statement audit. As you know, this is very dense, subject matter specific information, and the committee members provide significant oversight into the report results and also offer forward-looking questions to the external accountants. That tells me you're visionaries. The committee is also very helpful in our office by providing expertise and insight into our audit project activities. For example, crafting audit procedures, past capital improvement program audit. Suffice it to say that I absolutely agree that what you do is so valuable. I will attest that I don't know exactly what you do or how you do it, but you do it well. And you do it with grace, dignity, and integrity. And as one of your 7 trustees, I want to say we all appreciate that. Thank you for what you do, and I hope you'll hang around for a while. And enjoy your summer.
Thank you, Dr. Nicolette. Okay, are there any other public comments at this time?
No.
Okay. All right, moving on. I think the next item on the agenda is item 201, and that's the approval of the minutes of the last meeting that we had. So is there any discussion, changes, corrections, or is everybody satisfied with the minutes from our last meeting? Okay, then I guess we'll do a vote to approve them. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Motion carries.
Can I just get the first and the second on that motion?
Oh, sorry.
I
Can we get a
first.
first,
Yep.
second? Okay, now all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all right, motion
Sorry.
now carries. Let's see, item next is 202.02, discussion and possible action to forward to the Board of Trustees for consideration and acceptance, the annual follow-up of the Information Technology Organizational Structure and Security Program Audit. Okay, Kurt, it's all yours. Oh, Paul, it's all yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Ellis and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Paul Casey, Internal Auditor, and I'm here to present the annual follow-up of the Information Technology Audit. Joining us virtually from the Office of Information Technology is Joe Gallegos, Interim Chief Information Officer, and Austin Smith, IT Security Officer. I would like to thank Mr. Gallegos and his team for their assistance in compiling this report. To provide some background, the Internal Audit Department, in conjunction with sysaudits.com, an information technology audit and cybersecurity consulting company, conducted an audit of the Office of Information Technology. Several IT governance and risk management programs, such as those established by the National Institute of Standards and Technology and the Center for Internet Security, were relied upon as industry best practices. The audit identified opportunities to improve the district's computer security program and weaknesses in resources. The resulting original audit report was accepted by the Audit Committee and the Board of Trustees in November of 2016 and resulted in 14 recommendations designed to improve the department's organizational structure and security program. As of the previous year's annual follow-up, there were 5 remaining open recommendations. All 5 of the remaining recommendations are still considered partially implemented. However, significant progress has been made on each, with varying degrees towards full implementation or closure. 2 of the recommendations, 2.1 and 3.1, sought to have the department adopt certain computer security procedures and to establish written plans related to elements such as network and system activity monitoring, disaster recovery, incident handling, and configuration and vulnerability management. Applicable to both recommendations, the department has adopted all recommended policies into regulation, except for one, which is currently in draft form. The remaining policy is expected to be adopted into regulation by May of 2024, and once adopted, these 2 recommendations will be considered fully implemented. As such, these recommendations remain partially implemented. The remaining recommendations, 1.1, 3.6, and 3.7, center around budgetary resources. And though we have seen an increase in funding for the department since the original audit, no anticipated full implementation date can be established until resources are increased to fully support current district technology needs. As a result, these recommendations also remain partially implemented. Internal Audit would like to once again thank Mr. Gallegos and his staff for their ongoing diligence in working through the open recommendations as they continue to do so with somewhat limited resources and staff. So we appreciate their hard work and want to acknowledge their efforts to the committee. At this time, I would be happy to answer any questions from the committee.
So was there turnover at the executive level for the IT department at Washoe? Mr. Gallegos is a new face, right?
So, Joe, do you want to answer that?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
We're good? Okay. Chris Turner is the actual CIO and will be returning back within the next couple of weeks. He was on not administrative leave, on an extended leave.
I can relate. Okay. I was just gonna ask if there was like an exit interview done or any feedback from him, but if he's coming back, then no biggie.
I have a question. Are these findings still relevant? You know, the recommendations started in 2016. I would assume they're still relevant. And the second question is there a way we could get, like, maybe for the next time we go through this cycle, just a summary of the findings? Because I'm flipping pages here trying to find recommendation 3.6 and what that's about, and recommendation 1.1, and it's just, it's confusing. You know, I read through the report, but I didn't commit to memory the numbers of the recommendations.
Sure. I can, Joe, if you don't mind, I'll speak to the audit piece of it, and then Joe can
Okay.
speak to
Okay.
maybe the funding and
Yeah.
ongoing path. So from the audit piece, the original audit had centered around staffing to comparable districts around the country. We don't go back, 7 years later to actually check with each of those where they're at in funding and staffing and everything like that.
Right.
So in terms of relevance, I'm not sure about that piece. But in terms of what we're looking to do and what they're trying to do and build funding and staffing for the program, I can let Joe speak to that. I know he's got some things to share along those lines.
Joe, the floor is
Sure.
yours.
Thank you. Yeah, just one thing to point out on I think it really comes down to number 1.1 and 3.7 are pretty much the same. They're being able to fund resources. And currently, we haven't increased our staff. We have reached out over the last few months to do some comparables with some of the districts that are out there, and we have found that we are still very much understaffed. So, I mean, we're pretty much just in the same predicament. As far as 3.6, we do have a plan moving forward for that. We recently did purchase a network intrusion module or some servers to actually support that that piece that needed to be implemented, and that's just a matter of time putting it into place. And the final item for 3.6 is a anti-malware network firewall upgrade, which is something we just have to work into our budget. It's like a $50,000 increase. So my hope is that we're able to resolve 3.6, 3.1, and 2.1 this year, which would leave us with just the resource issues.
Okay, and 3.1 and 3.2, you say, what are those recommending?
3.1 and 2.1 were policies that are currently have been drafted
Okay,
and will be submitted this year
okay,
for final approval.
okay. And then 3.2?
Is it, it's one, there is no 3.2.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
all right, 1.1?
Yeah, 2.1 and 3.1
2.1,
are related
okay.
to that.
2.1, yes.
All right, 2.1, what is that telling us?
Same thing. 2.1 and 3.1 are both the same policy.
So it has to do with putting into practice policies, is that correct?
Establishing those policies around, let's see if I have that. Around incident response and change management
Okay,
and our DR. All those different pieces, we pretty much hit all of them. The last two were had to do with incident response. So
okay,
we've established that, we built that policy, and between 2.1 and the requirement for 3.1 for a policy, they are both within the same policy that has been drafted.
okay,
All right, I have a question.
please.
So, and this is actually geared more toward internal audit, not IT. So.
Okay,
So, this is an annual follow-up, correct?
correct.
So what is the current process for follow-up in the internal audit? Is it just annual for each audit, or is it a quarterly process? Traditionally, what does that look like?
The initial audit typically is at 6 months.
6 months.
I'm sorry, the initial follow-up
Is
is
6
typically
months.
6 months following the original audit, and then it's annually thereafter.
Annually? Because based on Ron's comment, because I sort of feel like after 6 months, it's a year, it could get stale, right, and not be relevant, where other organizations I've seen, they do a quarterly follow-up process, just to follow up and get an update on what's going on. And most of the time, if it's, not been remediated within 2 years or 3 years, at the end of the day, is it really a risk, right? Because nothing's happened, and it depends on the issue.
Yep.
At the end of the day. So just some thought, should we make that the frequency a little bit higher? And because a year, people forget what happened in a year. The stakeholders probably like, oh, I forgot about that. So.
I think my concern isn't the frequency of follow-up. My concern is that you have what I consider to be some pretty, I won't say the sky is falling type risk recommendations, but I think they're, I'll say they're probably significant risk, to use that term. They're not like absolutely the highest risk possible, but they're certainly important. Incident response, there's a reputational risk if an incident isn't responded to properly.
Yep.
I still have one child in the school district, so, I want her, all of the personal data that's gathered to be protected. So I think the onus is really on management to go and get the resources that are necessary. And keep in mind, Wesley, I come from a perspective that I have never seen a government agency in any way, shape, or form that feels they have appropriate resources. And in this case, maybe they don't, maybe they do, but they should get these resolved I would say within a year or two.
Right.
Because
Yeah, I agree, but I just fear that if no one's following up on them,
Yeah.
other priorities take precedence too, just sometimes, right?
well, true.
Yeah, and so
And
just
resources get
resources get
diverted.
moved. Exactly. So just some thought for IA. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so is this something we're asking for a motion on? Okay. So motion on 2.02, isn't it? Yeah, motion number 2.02. I need a motion to forward this to
All
the
right.
Washoe County
Yeah,
Board
so
of Trustees.
I, Wesley Chusler, move that the audit committee forward the annual follow-up of the IT organizational structure and security audit program to the Board of Trustees for acceptance.
Second.
Ben Bartow, second the motion.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 2.03. This is the sick leave bank audit. Thank you, Paul. Okay, Kirk, are you?
Yeah.
All right, Kirk, the floor is yours, sir.
Good afternoon, Kirk Starkey for the record, Chairman Ellis, and members of the committee. You may recall that we audited the sick leave bank program that is administered by the Human Resources Department over 1 year ago. Since then, the previous Chief Human Resource Officer has left the district, and a new Chief Talent Officer, Dr. Christina Mason, has recently been hired. Unfortunately, due to a scheduling conflict, Dr. Mason is unable to be at today's meeting. However, if there's any questions that we are unable to answer today, we'll deliver them to her, discuss them with her, and then we'll send her responses, make sure to get the responses to the committee afterwards. With that, I'd like to offer a little background from the original report. The purpose of the sick leave bank program is to attempt to alleviate economic hardship that may be brought upon an employee by an illness or injury. The program allows participating employees who have exhausted all their leave to draw additional paid leave from the bank that has been donated by other employees. This provides continuation of pay for a period of time while the program participant is unable to work. Otherwise, the employee could be on unpaid leave status. Participation in the program is completely voluntary, and participant results or requests and approvals for usage of the bank days are received and denied and/or denied by the respective bargaining associations. The Human Resources Department does not have any responsibility for the application process or the acceptance and denial of decisions pertaining to bank hour usage. Instead, each association individually retains that authority for the guidelines and approval and denial responsibilities. The objective of the audit was to determine whether procedures were in place to ensure sick leave bank hours are available prior to their approval for use. Overall, from that audit, we found the program processes were being followed and the office had proactively increased some administrative measures to improve program governance. However, the audit still identified 4 recommendations to improve the viability and effectiveness of the program. Specifically, we recommended 1, that human resources itself should administer the program and standardize guidelines. 2, that the program paperwork associated with the program should be secured and protected specifically for the personally identifiable information that's on the paperwork. Thirdly, the office should consider requiring annual employee contributions to the banks by all participants or additional contributions of participants based upon usage. And finally, consider allowing separating employees to transfer some accumulated sick leave to the bank. Please be aware, though, in the original report, we reported that the proposed recommendations from items 3 and 4 can be implemented individually or in a variety of iterations to arrive at the process of protecting the viability of the bank. But the department was best positioned to make those determinations. At this point, we discussed the report recommendation status with the previous department head before she left, and also with the recently hired chief talent officer. Both represented that because the sick leave bank program is considered an employee benefit, any proposed changes must be negotiated with the associations. Additionally, a third-party contractor currently is in the process of performing a comprehensive assessment of the Human Resources Department organizational structure and its activities. As such, when addressing any proposed enhancements that may result from that review, the Chief Talent Officer represents she will also consider incorporating these reports' recommendations into that process. Based upon all this, we considered the recommendations not implemented at this time, but we will revisit the recommendation status with the Audit Committee at next year's meeting after they've had a chance with the bargaining associations and with this current review that's going on. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I have a question, just
Please.
if I recall correctly, when this report was first presented, there was a problem with the bank being overdrawn, basically.
That's correct.
Okay, so.
That's
my-
what necessitated
Right.
the audit.
So my question is, and I think it's very gracious of the Chief Talent Officer to consider implementing the recommendations. But my question is this part of like the collective bargaining agreement anywhere with the teachers?
It's each association, because it's a program is being considered a benefit, they say it
Okay.
has to be bargained through that process.
Okay.
And that's why there's kind of a delay with, we issued this over a year ago to Wesley's point. The reason for that is we don't have the bargaining every year and the
Right.
negotiations going on. So in order to not come to you with a report saying, hey, we haven't had time to look at this,
Right.
we pushed it out to this point in time, but they're still in the process. This whole calendar year is going to be bargaining. So it's kind of, I would say at the next meeting, we would have a better answer. But I didn't want to leave this one hanging out there as it's not being.
No,
tackled.
appreciate that. So I guess in your opinion, this is like one of those, our hands are tied until the bargaining process goes through, and then
And
it may or may not get implemented, but,
in addition to the bargaining, there's all the review that's being done by the third-party contractor. There might be
Okay.
a way to,
they might have some recommendations of their own
Yeah,
to,
to put-
okay.
yeah.
All right.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Who are these bargaining associations? Is it just the Teachers Association, or are there other associations like cooks or?
There are other associations. There's several within the district, depending on like employee classification. So you'd have, yes, the teachers, and then there's professional technical engineers. That would be like accountants, auditors. There's several others that I can't recall, but
So are the leave banks separated by each entity, like accountants, teachers, and?
correct. Yes,
So
they
it's
are.
not pooled?
It's pooled for by bargaining association. So let's say principals, I forget that association, let's say professional and technical, they would have their own bank balance. So those employees in that classification could choose to donate and participate or not. And then the teachers would have their organization as well, yeah. But they don't get combined in one big pool. Instead, each separate organization does their own thing.
And just for the record, they already get sick leave, right? They get a bank of sick leave, personal time, PTO, vacation, and it's probably fairly reasonable to generous, I would think.
My understand,
I'm not asking you to opine on it, but they already, I think the key point, I don't want to put you in the position
All
of
good.
opining, but, the key point is they already get sick leave. And that's already been negotiated and that's negotiated at each interval when the agreements come up for renegotiation.
Correct.
So this sounds to me like the district it's something that they cooked up. Was this originally bargained for, I guess, is the next logical question. And you might not know that.
Yeah.
This may be so far back, or is this,
the history on that one, I can't speak to how
Yeah.
it was created.
Okay.
I don't know.
That's fair enough.
It's a voluntary program though, so it's not, you don't have to. It's kind of an option
Right.
whether you want to participate or not. But if you
Right.
choose not to participate, then you cannot ask for,
so if I understand correctly, people can volunteer to put their sick leave in, the bank can get overdrawn, but the district can't do anything about it unless they bargain to put in policies to keep it from getting overdrawn. Is that an accurate depiction of the situation?
yes, but here, I guess like in the audit, I'm thinking of how to answer this one best. Because the associations themselves individually control the process, you could overdraw it before the district could really, in theory, act, and there's not, and it's done. That's
Done.
So our point of the audit was, let's put this under the HR department, and so if let's say an overdraw did happen, well, then it's kind of on us as the district versus
Right.
someone else.
Right. It's up to the district to police and to have
Correct.
proper controls in
Correct.
place.
So I had a follow-up question on that. Given that there is the risk of overdrawal, I mean, it's happened in the past, wouldn't it make sense to put the program on pause until it actually gets set up so that it can be administered and that we don't have the deficit issue?
No, good question. The reason it's still, because it was the way I understand, because it's a benefit item, it's still there until bargained away would be so it stays, but until they didn't negotiate, I guess.
Okay.
Good question.
Okay. Unless there's any more comments or questions. Okay. Is somebody ready to make a motion to move this along to the Board of Trustees?
I, Ben Bartow, move that the audit committee forward the annual follow-up of Office of Human Resources sick leave bank audit to the Board of Trustees for acceptance.
Okay. Second?
I, Wesley, second motion.
Okay.
All right.
All those in favor of forwarding it to the Board of Trustees, say aye, please.
Aye.
All right. Any abstains? Going once, going twice. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 2.04. Another report for presentation and possible action forward to the Board of Trustees for consideration and acceptance, the biannual report of the Audit Committee. This is like the best report that you're going to see today. Mr. Starkey, would you like to present my report? Our report, rather.
Oh, good. Kirk Starkey for the record. This is an item for action, so don't hesitate to ask questions at any time. This item is a report where we document the work of this committee from the last 2 years and present it to the Board of Trustees. The report includes describing the composition of the committee, its activities, functions, and how its responsibilities are discharged. The chair has reviewed the report, but this may be your first opportunity. So if you have any proposed additions, deletions, etc., this would be a chance to let us know. Otherwise, the agenda item is seeking to approve and forward the report to the Board of Trustees. But I'd be happy to run through the report in more detail if there's anything through it. But because it is your report, and I'll happy to answer any questions also.
So I'll first ask, has everybody had a chance to review the report and read through it? And did we leave anything of significance or material fact out that we did? Something that we didn't recall, didn't cover, something that any committee member would like covered. Okay? Any discussion, questions on the report?
Nope,
Okay,
best report ever.
so I will
It's a masterpiece.
I will make a motion. Let me get my motion language here. I, Ronald Ellis, make the motion. I, Ronald Ellis, move that the Audit Committee forward the biannual report of the Audit Committee to the Board of Trustees for acceptance. And can I get a second?
Vito Zidane, second the motion.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. All right, item 2.05, another report for presentation and possible action to forward to the Board of Trustees for their consideration and acceptance of the annual independence statement from the Chief Auditor. Mr. Starkey, it's all yours.
Kirk Starkey for the record. Chairman Ellis and members of the committee, as you're aware, our department operates under the standards of the Institute of Internal Auditors, the IAA. And IAA Standard 1110 requires me to confirm to the board annually the organizational independence of our activities and if there are any impairments in our work. As part of your packet, there's an enclosed report confirming that the structure of our office properly allows our department to fulfill its responsibilities by operating in an environment that maintains and facilitates our organizational independence and that we face no impediments in carrying out our duties. This is an item for action also, where we're seeking your approval to forward this item to the Board of Trustees. Thank you, and if you have any questions on this one.
Pretty routine thing. Maybe one quick question is, what is the process for confirming that the auditors wouldn't have a conflict, like, have a spouse working in a department or a child or a brother or a nephew, something like that? Do they do that on every project they undertake, certify that they have no conflicts?
That's correct. Before we
Okay.
start every project, we certify that there are no conflicts.
So we would be able to prevent and/or detect a conflict unless it was undisclosed?
That's correct.
All right. Do we have a motion to accept the statement?
I, Jennifer Thomas, move that the Audit Committee forward the annual independence statement from the Chief Auditor to the Board of Trustees for acceptance.
Okay.
I, Vito Zidane, second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope, motion carries. Item 2.06, update on the activities of the Internal Audit Department to include current projects on the audit plan and recent student activity funds audit of Lynn's, GOM, and Peavine Elementary Schools. Mr. Starkey, the floor is yours.
Kirk Starkey for the record. Again, this item is an info and discussion item, so don't hesitate to ask questions also throughout. This is basically where we put up our department's work plan and showing the progress and where we're at with the projects. Part of your packet on the screen is the projects broken down by, in the bold is by subject matter to kind of break it out a little bit. There's a couple items though I wanted to bring to your attention. First, we've completed the required annual compliance reviews of the 7 district charter schools. But also due to some continued deficiencies noted during our monitoring of Bailey Charter School, we've added quarterly contacts with that school to attempt to remedy some compliance issues that were noted. So we'll be doing those for the next year as well. Second, as you're aware, we've been focusing our workload in the area of the student activity funds lately. And I wanted a little context. These funds combine for about $11.7 million in receipts and about $10.8 million in disbursements in fiscal year 2022. And in my opinion, that's very significant, and due to the volume of requests that we get for these type of audits and the need for continuous improvement in the area, I'm proposing to continue to work through these audits that we've received requests for. And then finally, we have a planned audit that we discussed in prior meetings of the capital improvement program, where it's focusing on the professional service providers. This basically is the architects, engineers, and design firms There was a third-party contractor selected to perform the audit. It's BDO USA. Right now, we're trying to get the contract finalized, and we're seeking to start that project with any luck by the end of this month. And those are kind of the big high points. And I'd be happy to address any questions and on either this program or the 3 student activity reports that are part of this agenda item as well, LINS, GOM, and Peavine.
I have a sort of a question on funds, since we had an initial discussion on funds. So if a hotline or a request comes in for an audit of appropriation of funds and stuff, would that just get put in here, or would that be separate? Because how does that fit into like your resource and timing?
It's basically in the bottom, it would be, in that instance, it would be a hotline complaint, so we'd treat it through the hotline program.
Right.
And we would investigate it in typical manner in that fashion, so it wouldn't go on.
It wouldn't go on there.
Right, it would just be part of the hotline program
Got
that we operate.
Got it.
However, if through the hotline, I'll say this, sometimes items are brought to your attention that are, let's say, food for future audits, and in such case, we would bring them
Got it.
to the
Makes
committee
sense.
to say, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to make a comment. I thought the Peavine Elementary, like all the student activity fund audits, excellent reports. I think it's very worthwhile when you look at the amount of money in some of these activity funds, and then just to know that somebody is policing that. And then in a particular case with Peavine, and in probably quite a few of these cases, I don't recall all of them, principals coming in requested the audits so they could start on a good basis as far as like governing the funds and the cash handling as it goes through. And without the controls that are being pointed out that already exist and the pointing out of the enforcement of the controls, I could see an opportunity for somebody to defraud the district through ineffective operation. But thanks to these audits and this program, you know, I think that there's an awareness of what the control structure is for the student activity funds, and it polices, because, you know, Wesley, like I do, you get the syllabus for the kids going to school, and every teacher has like, you know, this fee or that fee that they need for their class. And some of them I look like and say, all right, what possible lab fee can there be for algebra, right? And what are they, we used to get these laundry lists of requests for supplies and things like that. And, you know, it's just nice to know that they're being policed. And I think the Peavine report was excellent.
Thank you.
And
I agree.
Thank you.
they were all excellent, actually.
Oh, that's,
Okay.
I just have a comment too. It looks like some of these have recurring issues.
correct.
And my question is there something we can do to prevent some of these from being recurring year after year, like when administrators take office? You know, maybe there's some kind of training that can be given to them and say, this is how we need these funds managed.
Great question. That's a good one, Vita. The business office has sought to get a position for training through this process and has secured it. And when that person, I believe, is getting up to speed on that, then the program will be a little more robust as far as training. And that is the best thing is initially with the training program. So hopefully get that started. The other thing is, from the advice of this committee, was for us to do follow-ups, like on especially the high schools, because in theory, the volume of transactions coming through there and the dollar amount is obviously much larger than the elementaries and middles, is to follow up more timely on the, let's say if there's any findings, we would follow up quicker than waiting for the next audit of that school to come around, because you're right, there'd be turnover and changes quickly, and we probably would end up with recurrings. So we're hoping, we're testing this out with McQueen here shortly in June, and seeing how that plays out, if we can get these corrected prior to being recurring at the next audit. Yeah, good one.
Thank you.
Okay, do we need these are just information and discussion, so item next, does that close the discussion on that portion? All right, item next is the report on
Could I do one more?
Sure,
What's
absolutely.
any care to dive into the Bailey Charter School deficiencies or rationale for
Yes.
quarterly?
Because it's, let me think of this. Yes. It was basically based on their, I think it's public. Yeah, this, I gotta think what's public and what.
Okay.
Timeout, sorry. Basically the issued financials that the school had, the CPAs noted a couple instances of, I would say it was probably material weaknesses in the control environment as far as timeliness of correcting journal entries, getting numbers or the general ledger posted correctly, adjusting journal entries, getting those timely done. That is the big one, and that's what we want to look into. They did have a complete, basically, management changeover, so that's also part of a reason for checking on them, but, yeah.
Thanks for upping that quarterly. It's important.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so now we're ready for the hotline discussion? Okay. It's all yours, Mr. Starkey.
Alrighty. Kirk Starkey for the record again. This item, as you know, this one is informational only. And our office administers the district's report waste, fraud, and abuse hotline program, and part of your packet. And on the screen is basically the worksheet we use to track the cases that are outstanding and that have been closed since our last meeting. Since our last meeting in January, we have had 9 new cases. Of those 9 new cases, 6 were referred to appropriate responsible departments for them to resolve and have been closed. 2 were closed for insufficient information to be able to even investigate or outside the program scope. And 1 was found basically to just be a statement, so basically it was not considered a case per se to investigate, and that was closed. In addition, the cases on the top, 1 case has been closed from the prior period. We investigated that, but it did not involve a district school. It was actually totally outside the school district. So it was basically, the subject matter is outside the program's scope, so it was closed. But we still have 6 open cases from the last time we met. Some of them are much larger in scope, and so that's why they're still open, but we still work those cases along with any new ones we receive ongoingly. But I can answer any general program-related questions if you have any related to the program.
So these open ones, Kirk,
Uh-huh.
you send them out to or the appropriate management for investigation, for example, violation of policies, school psychological services. Is that something internal audit would investigate, or does that get forwarded to department?
These, in this case, the cases, those, how do I say this? The open cases we have up on the top that we're investigating those. We
Okay.
have not referred those out.
Okay.
We're hanging on to those, and those we can handle.
Okay.
The ones that get referred out are typically
HR?
HR related,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. School safety, I see referred to school police.
Correct.
Violation. Okay, that's the only question I have.
Okay.
I got one. The psychological services, I saw the psychological audit is on hold, right?
Correct.
So, maybe we could kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Great question. The reason for that one, well, I think there's 2. The psychological up there, the MTSS and they're basically both related to the psychological services department. When we got into the cases, and they involve matters that right now need to be on hold. They've been out there for a while. We haven't forgotten them, but when we do the audit, when we're back in doing the audit, we can wrap these all in the same. There is no, I will assure the committee, there's no harm in this case of waiting on these. There's nothing that could impact students or anything like that.
But you can let that report at least drive your scoping for the audit.
Exactly.
Cool. Thanks, Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other discussion on this?
Okay.
All right, Mr. Starkey, that's an informational, so I think the next item up is to just look at the audit committee calendar for upcoming meetings.
This is Kirk Starkey for the record again. This item is informational only also. It's you're aware now, it's basically a high-level preview of what likely matters that will be discussed at our future scheduled meetings and is included for your planning consideration due with the dates that are up top. Please note that our next scheduled meeting is for August, and if you have any items you would like to include, just let us know. One item, though, I'd like to note is that after this afternoon's meeting, we will have one open position on the committee. So if you happen to know of anyone who may be interested or would like to serve on the committee, please let us know. Jeannie or contact Jeannie or myself. It would be very helpful, much appreciated. And thank you all again for your service. Appreciate it big time, as Dr. Nicolette has expressed. Thank you. And then we'll see you in August.
Okay, great. All right, Gene, I know I asked this before, but just in case you got a public comment card that came in or any email correspondence.
No, there's no in-person or email public comment.
Okay, no public comments, so we'll move on. The next meeting will be August 10th, 2023, just like it says on the calendar. And then I think the last thing is to adjourn the meeting. If there's no objections, do we need a motion to adjourn? I don't think so. All right, I declare this meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, everybody.
That was Todd saying bye.
Thanks, Todd.
Was.